For millennia, humanity gazed up dreaming of the stars trapped on Earth, imagining what might be. We finally broke free, landing on the moon, and for a moment the universe felt within reach. But after Apollo, our ambition faded. Space became slow, expensive, and safe. The dream of exploring new worlds slipped into the background, replaced by cautious steps in low Earth orbit. The International Space Station became our outpost, but we never truly left home. For decades, the cosmos waited while we hesitated. The dream of becoming a multi-planet species slept waiting for a new spark. Then came SpaceX, a private company with a radical idea: rockets should be reusable. Elon Musk saw that throwing away rockets made space travel impossibly expensive. SpaceX moved fast, embracing failure as a path to progress. Their goal? Land and reuse rockets, slashing costs and opening space to more than just governments. Early launches failed spectacularly, but they learned, rebuilt, and tried again. Critics doubted, but SpaceX persisted, driven by relentless iteration. Their approach redefined what was possible in aerospace. This was just the beginning. SpaceX didn't stop at reusable rockets. They set their sights on Mars. Starship was born, a fully reusable, massive spacecraft designed to carry people to other worlds. Imagine a stainless steel giant, launching, landing, refueling, and flying again. Starship aims to make space travel routine, affordable, and transformative. Its reusability is the key to unlocking the solar system. This is more than a rocket, it's a symbol of hope and ambition. The journey to the stars is just beginning. SpaceX's story starts with Elon Musk, fresh from selling PayPal, dreaming of Mars. He wanted to inspire humanity with a simple vision: life on another planet. His first plan was a Martian greenhouse, a symbol of hope, not a technical feat. But rockets were too expensive and hard to buy. The aerospace world was closed, slow and costly. Musk's search for a rocket would force him to rethink everything. That quest would change the future of spaceflight. Musk's hunt for a cheap rocket led him to Russia, hoping to buy repurposed missiles. The meetings went nowhere. The Russians saw him as an outsider and quoted sky-high prices. Frustrated, Musk realized the raw materials for a rocket were cheap. The real cost was bureaucracy and inefficiency. On the flight home, he made a decision. If he couldn't buy a rocket, he'd build one. That moment sparked the birth of SpaceX. Sometimes rejection is the start of something revolutionary. Musk was ready to take on the impossible. In 2002, SpaceX was born, built on first principles and relentless questioning. Musk assembled a team of bold engineers, determined to build rockets in-house and move fast. Their first project, Falcon 1, a small, affordable orbital rocket. Building from scratch meant solving problems no one else dared tackle. They embraced failure, learning and iterating at breakneck speed. SpaceX's culture was more like a tech startup than a traditional aerospace giant. Every setback was a lesson, every explosion a step forward. The journey was just beginning and the stakes couldn't be higher. To launch a rocket, you need a launch pad. SpaceX couldn't use major US launch sites, so they found a tiny, remote island in the Pacific Ocean, part of the Kwajalein Atoll. For the early SpaceX team, it would become a place of immense struggle. In March 2006, the first launch attempt took place, but the rocket failed, crashing onto the launch pad and exploding. For SpaceX, it was just the first lesson. A year later, they were back with an improved Falcon 1. The rocket soared into the sky, but 5 minutes into the flight, it began to spin out of control. Musk had enough money for one more try. In August 2008, they were ready for their third attempt. But then, disaster struck again, causing it to fail. 3 launches, 3 failures. After the Falcon 9's success, SpaceX focused on Mars. They needed something much bigger, something different. Early designs used carbon fiber, but SpaceX shocked the industry by pivoting to stainless steel. It seemed bizarre, but Musk saw its potential in extreme temperatures. Steel gets stronger when cold, perfect for cryogenic fuels. Its high melting point allows for a simpler re-entry heat shield. This aligned with SpaceX's philosophy: simplify and reduce costs. Steel was cheap and easy to work with, enabling rapid prototyping in Boca Chica. Building Starship is one thing, landing it requires a new approach. It's called the belly flop maneuver. Starship turns sideways, using its body as an air brake. Fore flaps control its descent like a skydiver. Near the ground, Starship flips upright, firing its Raptor engines. This allows for a soft touchdown. It's a daring part of the Starship design. A revolutionary rocket needs a revolutionary engine. At the heart of Starship and its super heavy booster is the Raptor engine. This is not just another rocket engine. It is a masterpiece of engineering that pushes the boundaries of what is possible. The Raptor is what makes the entire Starship architecture work. It is incredibly powerful, efficient, and designed from the ground up to be reusable for hundreds of flights with minimal maintenance. Without the Raptor, the dream of a rapidly reusable spaceship to Mars would remain just that, a dream. SpaceX had to invent a new class of engine to power its ambitions. The key innovation of the Raptor engine is its fuel source. Unlike the Falcon 9's Merlin engines, which use rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, the Raptor burns liquid methane and liquid oxygen. This choice was deliberate and forward-thinking. Methane is a high-performance fuel that burns very cleanly, which means it doesn't leave behind a sooty residue. This is crucial for reusability, as it makes the engines easier and faster to inspect and prepare for the next flight. Less cleaning and refurbishment means a faster turnaround time, which is essential for making spaceflight more like air travel. But the most important reason for choosing methane is Mars. The ultimate goal is to build a self-sustaining city on the red planet. That city will need to be able to refuel starships for the return journey to Earth. Mars has a thin atmosphere composed mostly of carbon dioxide, and there is a lot of water ice just beneath its surface. Using a chemical process called the Sabatier reaction, you can combine carbon dioxide from the Martian air with hydrogen from water to create methane and oxygen. This means astronauts on Mars can literally make their own rocket fuel from local resources. Methane is the key to making Starship a truly interplanetary vehicle. The Raptor is also what is known as a full-flow staged combustion engine. This is an extremely complex and efficient engine design that has been called the holy grail of rocketry. For decades, it was considered too difficult to build. No one had ever successfully flown one. SpaceX, with its typical audacity, decided to tackle the challenge. This design allows the Raptor to generate incredible thrust at extremely high pressures, making it the most powerful engine of its kind ever created. Building a fleet of these engines, reliably and cheaply, is one of SpaceX's greatest accomplishments and the foundational technology for our multiplanetary future. Even with the most powerful rocket ever built, there's this fundamental problem of physics you just can't escape: the tyranny of the rocket equation. Basically, what this equation tells us is that to go places far away, you need a lot of fuel. And, to lift that fuel, well, you need even more fuel. It's a vicious cycle, really. A single Starship launching from Earth doesn't have enough propellant to fly to Mars, land, and then come back. Heck, it doesn't even have enough to get to the Moon and land. So, to tackle this, SpaceX came up with another one of its signature, game-changing ideas: orbital refueling. Now, the plan is simple in concept, but incredibly complex in execution. First, a Starship carrying people or cargo is launched into a low Earth orbit. It'll just sit there, waiting, like a car with an almost empty gas tank. Then, SpaceX will launch several more Starships, not with people, but as tankers, filled to the brim with liquid oxygen and liquid methane. These tanker Starships will fly up to orbit, rendezvous with the first Starship, and dock with it. They'll then transfer their massive load of propellant, filling up the tanks of the main ship for its long journey. This is really the key that unlocks the entire solar system. With a full tank of fuel in orbit, a Starship has the energy to go almost anywhere. It can carry 100 tons of cargo all the way to the surface of the Moon. It can transport 100 people on a months-long journey to Mars. Orbital refueling turns low Earth orbit into a cosmic gas station, a staging point for humanity's expansion into space. It completely breaks the limits imposed by the rocket equation. What that means is, the size of your rocket on the launch pad no longer determines your ultimate destination. It's a paradigm shift in how we think about mission planning. Of course, this is an enormous engineering challenge. No one's ever tried to transfer hundreds of tons of cryogenic fluids between two vehicles in the vacuum of space. It requires precise robotic docking, perfectly insulated transfer lines, and clever ways to manage propellants in zero gravity, where liquids don't just sit at the bottom of a tank. SpaceX is developing the technology to do this right now. Solving the orbital refueling riddle is just as important as building the rocket itself. It's the final piece of the puzzle that'll enable Starship to live up to its promise of changing everything. The journey to building Starship began with something that looked like a water tower. In Boca Chica, Texas, SpaceX started with the basics, testing fundamental concepts. This led to Starhopper, a strange-looking vehicle and the first physical embodiment of the new steel design. To outsiders, it looked like a joke, with the internet comparing it to a water tank. Its purpose was to test the Raptor engine and the software for vertical takeoff and landing. In the summer of 2019, tests began, including static fires and small hops. In August, Starhopper soared to a height of 150 meters. The water tower had successfully flown, proving that a steel vehicle powered by a Raptor engine could be controlled. With the lessons from Starhopper in hand, the SpaceX team moved on to building the real thing, or at least the first attempts at the real thing. They began constructing full-scale Starship prototypes, designated with serial numbers like SN1, SN2, and so on. The pace of work at Boca Chica, now nicknamed Starbase, was just incredible. It was less like a traditional aerospace facility and more like a high-speed manufacturing line for giant rockets. Huge steel rings were being welded together constantly. New prototypes were assembled in a matter of weeks, a speed pretty much unheard of in the industry. It was a process of rapid, relentless iteration. The first few prototypes never even made it to the launch pad. They were built to test the manufacturing process and the structural integrity of the design. SN1 was a full-size test tank that was destroyed during a cryogenic pressure test in early 2020. The steel structure crumpled under the immense pressure, teaching the team valuable lessons about their welding techniques and the strength of the materials. SN3 suffered a similar fate just a few months later, but these weren't seen as failures in the traditional sense. They were data points. Each destroyed prototype provided crucial information that was fed back into the design of the next one. Then came Starship SN4. This was the first full-scale prototype that survived the brutal pressure tests. It was a major milestone. SN4 became a workhorse on the ground, undergoing a series of static fire tests with its Raptor engine. It proved that the full-size vehicle could handle the power, but its life also ended in a spectacular explosion after a fuel leak during a post-test procedure. The next prototypes, SN5 and SN6, were built stronger and better, incorporating all the lessons from their predecessors. They were ready to attempt what Starhopper had done, but on a much grander scale. In August and September of 2020, both SN5 and SN6 successfully performed their own 150-meter hops. Seeing these massive 9-meter-wide steel vehicles lift off the ground, maneuver, and land was just a breathtaking sight. They were no longer just test tanks. They were real flying machines. Each successful hop was a confirmation that SpaceX was on the right path. They had proven the basic flight controls on a full-scale vehicle. Now it was time for the next, much more difficult challenge: flying high into the sky and attempting the wild, terrifying, and absolutely essential belly flop maneuver. The next phase? Altitude. The goal was a high-altitude Starship prototype flight, engine shutdown, and the radical belly flop descent. This was the true test. SN8, SN9, SN10, and SN11 were prepared for these flights. Each launch was a major public event. These tests were experiments, and spectacular failures were a real possibility. SN8 climbed to 12.5 kilometers. At its peak, the engines shut down and it tipped over. SN8 fell through the sky, controlled by its flaps, but the landing flip didn't go as planned. SN8 slammed into the pad and exploded. Despite the explosion, the flight was a success. SN9's flight was almost a carbon copy. It was obliterated on impact. SN10's flight was flawless, landing in one piece before also exploding. SN11 launched in heavy fog and disintegrated in midair. 4 flights, 4 explosions. For SpaceX, this was rapid iteration in action. They were on the brink of a breakthrough. After the string of dramatic explosions, the pressure was on. The world was watching to see if SpaceX could finally nail the landing. The next prototype in line was SN-15. This vehicle was a significant upgrade from its predecessors. It featured hundreds of improvements to the structure, the avionics, and the Raptor engines. It was a more mature and robust version of the ship, incorporating all the hard lessons learned from the fiery fates of SN-8, SN-9, SN-10, and SN-11. There was a quiet confidence that this time things might be different. The team had analyzed every millisecond of data from the previous flights. On May 5, 2021, SN-15 stood ready on the launch pad. The countdown began, and its 3 Raptor engines ignited, sending it soaring into the blue Texas sky. The ascent was perfect, climbing to an altitude of 10 kilometers. Then, just like its siblings, it performed the graceful flip onto its belly and began its long fall back to Earth. The 4 flaps worked continuously, steering the massive steel cylinder as it descended. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The most critical moments were still to come, the moments where every previous attempt had ultimately failed. As SN-15 neared the ground, 2 of its Raptor engines reignited with a powerful roar. The vehicle executed the landing flip maneuver, swinging from a horizontal to a vertical orientation with incredible speed and precision. It was a beautiful, violent, and perfectly controlled ballet of fire and steel. It slowed its descent, its landing legs deployed, and it touched down softly on the concrete pad. This time, it stayed down. A small, manageable fire broke out at the base of the rocket, a common issue with the methane fuel, but the onboard fire suppression system quickly put it out. It had landed, and it had survived. SN-15 stood tall and proud on the landing pad, a gleaming silver monument to persistence. It was the breakthrough moment everyone had been waiting for. The successful flight and landing of SN-15 proved, without a doubt, that the entire wild concept was viable. A giant steel spaceship could fly high, fall like a skydiver, and then land itself gently back on Earth. It was a monumental achievement, a turning point in the Starship development program. It marked the end of the initial high-altitude flight test campaign and set the stage for the next, even more ambitious goal-reaching orbit. SN-15's landing was half the battle. Starship is a 2-stage rocket. The ship is the upper stage. It sits atop Super Heavy. Starbase built and tested this booster. Super Heavy's scale is immense. It's a 230-foot tower, with more than twice the thrust of Saturn V. Ship 20 was placed on Booster 4. The world saw the fully stacked Starship. It was nearly 400 feet tall, the largest rocket ever. Static fire tests followed. The first integrated flight test was in April 2023. The rocket lifted off, several engines failed, the vehicle was intentionally destroyed. A second flight in November was more successful. Each flight provided critical data, pushing SpaceX closer to a reusable Starship. Starship's first grand mission, the Moon. NASA's Artemis program aims to establish a permanent lunar presence using Starship. Starship will be the human landing system. Leveraging orbital refueling, a lunar Starship will launch. Tanker Starships will then refuel it in Earth orbit. Artemis astronauts will launch in NASA's Orion capsule. After docking with Starship in lunar orbit, they'll descend to the surface. Humanity returns to the Moon. Starship changes lunar exploration. It's an enormous vessel, larger than the International Space Station, capable of carrying 100 tons of cargo. It's a habitat, power station, garage, and science lab, the foundation for a permanent base. More Starships will follow with cargo, delivering habitats, rovers, and solar power. The key is using lunar resources, like water ice. A lunar base could refuel Starships for other destinations, transforming the Moon into an industrial outpost. It becomes a training ground for Mars. The Moon becomes a stepping stone to the solar system. The Moon is the goal, but Mars has always been the destination. The journey to Mars is much more difficult than a trip to the Moon. It's a voyage that'll take 6 to 9 months. This is where Starship's immense size is a necessity. A fleet of Starships will be launched, performing orbital refueling. Launch windows to Mars only open up once every 26 months. The ship will ignite its engines and onto a trajectory towards the red planet. The blue marble of Earth shrinks to a tiny point of light behind them. Starship is being designed with large common areas and private crew quarters. carrying the first human explorers to another world. Arriving at Mars is the beginning of an adventure to build a permanent, self-sustaining city. This is Elon Musk's dream, and the reason SpaceX exists, to make humanity a multi-planetary species. A city on Mars is the first step, and Starship is the only vehicle that could make it possible. The first crewed Starship will become the first habitat, and its crew, the first Martians. They will set up infrastructure, deploy solar panels, and produce propellant. As launch windows open, starships will carry habitats, equipment, and tools. The goal is a self-sustaining city, a second cradle for humanity. This ambitious vision requires millions of people and tons of cargo, launching thousands of starships. It starts with successful orbital and lunar flights, and the first crewed mission to Mars. We stand today at a remarkable moment in history. The cosmos was a beautiful backdrop, a celestial ceiling above our single planetary home. We took one giant leap with Apollo, but then we stepped back. But something has shifted. A giant stainless steel ship is taking shape, born from a relentless, audacious vision. SpaceX has fundamentally altered the equation, challenging the very foundations of what we thought was possible. Starship is the physical manifestation of this new philosophy. It is the rekindling of a collective ambition we thought we had lost. It gives us a tangible tool to reach for those distant worlds. The journey of humanity no longer has to be confined to this one small, fragile world. We are on the precipice of a new era, the dawn of a true space age. The path forward is still long and fraught with challenges. Reaching orbit is just one step. Mastering orbital refueling is another. Landing humans on the moon and then on Mars will be the hardest things we have ever done. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt and failure. But the direction of travel is clear. The momentum is undeniable. The journey of SpaceX and Starship is a powerful reminder that progress is not inevitable. It is made by people who are willing to push against the seemingly impossible, to work tirelessly, and to get back up after they fail. This epic story is not just about one company or one man. It is about the human spirit of exploration itself. It's about that innate curiosity that drove our ancestors to cross oceans and explore continents. The solar system is our new ocean, and Starship is our vessel. It's a tool that we, as a species, can use to write the next chapter of our story. A future with cities on the moon and outposts on Mars is a future that is fundamentally more exciting and hopeful. It's a future where our children can look up at the night sky and see not just distant points of light, but destinations. This is the ultimate promise of Starship. It is a machine that makes hope for the future tangible. It's a symbol of a future where we are not just survivors on a single planet, but adventurers and pioneers spread across a solar system. It's a future where humanity has a backup, a second chance. The work being done today, the welding, the testing, the explosions, the triumphs, is laying the foundation for this incredible destiny. We are living through the very beginning of humanity's transition from an earthbound species to a multi-planetary one. It is a privilege to witness. The journey is just beginning. The first steps of this new age are being taken right now. The sky is no longer the limit. It is the invitation. Starship is our response to that invitation. It is our way of saying that we are ready. We are ready to explore. We are ready to build. We are ready to reach for the stars, not just in our imaginations, but for real. The future is not something that happens to us. It is something we build. And right now, we are building it taller, shinier, and more powerful than ever before.